Parks Board. Today's event is held at Hort Park in conjunction with the Community Gardening Festival. This festival celebrates the efforts and achievements of our community gardeners in Singapore. NUS Mind Science Centre and NParks have been working closely together for several years, and this joint event is the first after the easing of the COVID circuit breaker. So this is an 1-hour event. There are 3 main items. The first item is the Wisinto lecture by Professor Kwa Ee Hyok. Then we'll be launching our new book. And lastly, there'll be a panel discussion. We encourage our online audience to participate by typing your questions in the Q&A section in Zoom. So without further ado, let's welcome Director of Mind Science Centre, Professor Wong Chi Ming, to give us the welcome address.
Good morning, Mrs. Teo Po In, Patron Mind Science Centre, Dr. C.K. Cheong, Chairman Board of Advisor Mind Science Centre, Mr. Sia Fu Hua, our Chairman of NUHS Board and NUS Board of Trustees, Mr. Abdullah Tamuji, our former Speaker of Parliament, Mrs. Wee, distinguished guests, especially those, many of you all who are at the webinar, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here this morning with us. For those of us who are at the Hort Park, as well as our live webinar, a very warm welcome. 8 years ago, the late Mr. Wisinto, the founding chairman, board of advisor of Mind Science Centre, together with a group of passionate medical experts and industry professionals, mooted the establishment of the Mind Science Centre to build mental resilience of the young and the elderly in Singapore and help launch pioneering research in the area of dementia prevention. Today, through the many years and effort, Mind Science Centre is a National University Health System Centre of Excellence and an academic centre at NUS Yong Loo Lin School of Medicine, Department of Psychological Medicine. The recognition of the importance and the impact of mental health among Singaporeans and the community have increased significantly over the past years, both by leaders as well as individuals, even more so with the current COVID-19 pandemic. And there has been increased attention on the science, fundamental reasons, and how we can mitigate psychological stress, anxiety, and mental health issues. Mind Science Centre conducts evidence-based research that aims to identify core mental health trends and introduce translational program in the community for upstream prevention, targeted at both the individual and the community. One such pioneering community program is the Jurong Aging Research Study, led by Professor Kwa Ee Hyok, Professor Rati Mahendran, and a team of academic scientists and clinicians from NUHS and NUS. This is translated into a community program, which is now, we call it Aging Well Every Day. In the early days, it was called Dementia Prevention Program, DPP. And this has actually been able to provide much evidence in the various aspects of the program research to show that active aging is possible, especially to mitigate impact of aging, reduce the risk of depression and dementia in the elderly. Expanding across the age continuum, the Mind Science Centre also spearheaded research in adolescent in the Youth Epidemiology and Research Study we call YEAR, currently in the first few stages of data collection. And this is already starting to demonstrate early indications of the key issues that impacts our children and youth in the age group of 10 to 18 years old. We have also started a My Art Experiential Lab, which is an incubation hub project at Alexandra Hospital in our NUHS campus. As named the My Art Experiential Lab, MayLab in short. The late Mr. Wee was part of the early driving force behind the conceptualization and the setup of this MayLab, which will provide a launch of its first curation in the coming quarter. And we hope to introduce to you in a very quick time. Mr. Wee has also helped us shape many other initiatives besides the MyLab, besides the AWE, especially in the area of mindfulness, as well as mindful activities with the nature. Today we are here for the Vicinto lecture and the launch of the book Nature and Mindful Awareness study book titled Nature, Health and Happiness. The book is a collaborative effort of both Professor Kwa, Dr. Jade, Mr. Sui, Professor Vincent Chong, Angelia, and many writers who actually contributed to the book in its publication. And this is a testimony of the close collaboration between NPARC, many of our Mind Science Center's research scientists, colleagues, as well as many people who are interested in nature and health and mental wellness. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Kwa Yi-hyok, the Tan Yok In Professor in Psychiatry and Neuroscience, to deliver the Vicinto lecture this morning entitled Ecology of Resilience, Faith, Love in the Time of COVID-19. Professor Kwa, please.
Thank you, John. Can I have the first slide, please? The patron of the NUS Mind Science Center, Mrs. Teo Po In, the chairman of the National University Health System, Mr. Sia Fu Hua, the chairman of the Mind Science Center, Dr. C.K. Cheong, our former Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Abdullah Tamuji, friends and colleagues. Many of our friends are watching the comfort of your home in this webinar, and there are many around the island and also outside of Singapore. I know that a few friends from Beijing, Penang, KL, Ipoh, and Batu Pahat, and as far south as Sydney and Melbourne are watching this webinar. It is a beautiful day here in the Hort Park. And the topic of my lecture is the ecology of resilience. And this lecture is dedicated to the memory of a dear friend, the late Mr. Vicinto, who was the founding chairman of the Mind Science Center, a former NUS vice president, and the first person to introduce mindfulness to the NUS students. He was always a strong supporter of the therapeutic garden. Last year, the former director of mental health from the World Health, Professor Norman Sartorius, came to Singapore to deliver the first Tao Tien Seng lecture, and the topic was on mental resilience. And he defined resilience in two categories. First, the resilience of the individual, and secondly, the resilience of the community. The resilience, let me see. And the resilience of the individual is an individual's ability to adapt in the face of adverse condition. And the resilience of the community is the ability of a system to withstand change in its environment and still function. So it is now we're in the midst of the pandemic. Can we still remain resilient? I certainly think we can. And we are very fortunate here in Singapore that there is a mental resilience program for our seniors. And this program is called the Age Well Everyday program. And this program was started at Jurong, and there's tremendous research done, and it's evidence-based, and the papers are published in the World's Journal, including the Lancet. And there are three important elements of this program. One, health education, understanding what is diabetes, hypertension. Secondly, exercise. And thirdly, mindfulness. There are now about 8 centers around Singapore with this program, And each of the centers have their other activities, including art, music, and gardening. And the study on gardening was conducted here at a hot park. And it's a big study, and important finding of this study was that gardening can improve our immune system. And this has been published in the World's Journal, and 3 months ago we were invited by the BBC in London to give an interview on our research finding. Having done the first study and here in the hot park, National Parks introduced the therapeutic garden. And we are so glad that now, besides one, there are more than 5 therapeutic gardens around the island. And so this picture is, you can see a very energetic Minister Desmond Lee with Minister Gan Kim Yong at the Bishan Park. The next area of research, a new frontier of research that we're in is the therapeutic forests. This idea came about after a lunch discussion with the chairman of NParks, Benny Lim, and our former Speaker of Parliament, Abdul Tambuji. It was over a delicious curry fish head lunch at Dempsey Road. And an idea germinated that maybe we should do a study on the forests. So the proposal was that we invite 20 friends to walk through the rainforest of the Botanic Gardens and find out what happened to them after 10 weeks. 10 consecutive weeks on a Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. Will it change your health? We're not too sure, but we started this study. There are many other studies in the world on the forests. In Japan, they call it forest bathing. In America, forest therapy. But what is so unique and what's so special about the Singapore study are 3 elements. Firstly, there is mindful walking. And this is where the late Mr. Wee Sin To and his wife, Gyok Hua, taught us how to walk mindfully through the rainforest. Often we walk through the forest without understanding or knowing the trees around us. And this is where NParks help us out. We have 2 friends, Mr. Maxwell and Paul, will accompany us, and they'll tell us that is the Julongtong tree, that is the Meranti tree, and they'll tell us about the medicinal value of these trees. This is very important because often, even as you drive along the roads in Singapore, which are lined with beautiful trees, we don't know what's the name of the trees. And I'm told that in the Botanic Gardens, there are more than 1,500 species of plants and 400 species of birds. And this is phenomenal in the forest, to learn. And after 2 hours of walking, they adjourn to their favorite watering hole, having coffee or tea. And there is no idle talk. Every week there's a focused topic. 1 week maybe on diet, another week on diabetes, the 3rd week on hypertension, falls, how to sleep better. So this went on for 10 weeks. After 10 weeks, what happened? I assessed them at 3 levels: the physical health, the mental health, and the social health. So this is a small study, it's a qualitative study. I compare this group with a group in Chinatown, which I examined several years ago. This is the biggest study, the first study in Singapore on dementia amongst the old people at Chinatown, a sample size of 612. This is both a quantitative and a qualitative study. So you see that obviously there's a difference. The NAMA study, the Nature and Mindful Awareness study, mainly middle class people, whereas the Chinatown study, mainly the working class people. But why is it important? Because every time I present the Singapore data in a world conference, someone from the World Health will say, those data are of the working class in Singapore, from Toa Payoh, Jurong, or Ang Mo Kio. The world, even from China, India, Europe, or North America, they don't have the data of the middle class people. And the World Health tell all of us that the middle class in China has ballooned. More than 56 million people belong to the middle class, even in India. but not many people know about the health services or the health consumption. But we know in all these countries, the health service consumption is highest among the middle class. So we see that in this group here, for musculoskeletal discomfort or pain, they have aches, pain, muscle strains. Among the NAMAS group, which is Nature and Mindful Awareness group, 30%, the Chinatown, 12%. Why is that so? Most of the people here, the middle class people, they are more having sedentary job. They are a senior government official. Sorry, got back to it. There's senior civil servants, doctors, professors, even bankers, more sedentary jobs, so they have more of this discomfort compared to this group, And so many of these people who are middle class, whenever I ask them, you have a back problem, what do you do? They say, well, I see my doctor. I will probably ask for an MRI scan of my spinal column, which is quite costly. But what about the people here when I interviewed them, the Chinatown elderly? Well, if I have back pain, I'll just go to the local traditional Chinese shop. I'll ask for they'll sell me a tube of a tiger balm. I'll just rub it down. I will not ask for an MRI scan. It's too expensive. And you see also the prevalence of hypertension, diabetes higher amongst the middle class. But what happened after 10 weeks? The prevalence of musculoskeletal discomfort came to just 10%, and all of them with hypertension, diabetes were well controlled. For mental health, I used a questionnaire used by the World Health Organization, the General Health Questionnaire. If you score more than 4 points on the GHQ, you have a mental health problem, commonly depression or anxiety. But here in this study, 80% have just 1 or 2 points. All of them are normal, except for, and their symptoms are mainly of sleep difficulty or sometimes a bit of anxiety. And only one person has a score of 3 points. What happened after 10 weeks? This number came down to just 30%, and the person with 3 points came to just 1 point. And none of them have any evidence of any cognitive decline. What happened to their social health? Right, in the beginning of the study, they don't know each other, most of them. But now they're able to have more social connectivity. And in the midst of the pandemic now, they begin to care for one another. There are few people in this group who are widows or widowers. And the more able-bodied one will volunteer to buy the mask for them, buy groceries for them, or even take medicine for them to the hospitals. And their sense of gratitude because they decided to form a virtual choir and to thank our healthcare workers. I think that's quite tremendous for them. And also at the end of the 10-week walk, they thought that since the national parks have been so kind to them, Mr. Wee Sinto said we should thank them with a donation. So he passed the hat around for a donation, and we gave a donation to the national parks. And the national park agreed that we should plant 30 medicinal trees here in a hot park. I think that's tremendous. I think the collaboration between national parks and the Mind Science Center. Someone asked me, what is the benefit of this study? What is the benefit of this study to the community? There are two very important benefits: building social capital and mental capital. Social capital and mental capital are important in the ecology of resilience in the community. Social capital meaning that you know your friends, there's a social cohesion, they'll take care of you. Mental capital, now, although the mean age of this group is 68 years old, 80% of them are working part-time or full-time. This is a very important fact because in Singapore there is a popular misconception that people above 65 are retired and not economically productive. They are a burden to society. Far from it. 80% are still working part-time or full-time and contributing to the economy. And this is a very important fact in the ecology of resilience. Several years ago, I was invited by the Indonesian government to help out in the tsunami when it struck Aceh. And the doctors in Aceh told me that not all the shorelines down there are destroyed by the tidal wave. Certain parts of the shorelines were well preserved because of the mangrove trees. The mangrove trees have deep roots that protects the shoreline from the tsunami. And they also told me that in Sumatra and Java, they frequently have earthquakes. And the earthquakes could topple tall buildings, but they will not knock down the tall trees in the rainforest. There's something about the rainforest. The trees have deep roots, and the roots are all cling together, and they're able to withstand the tidal wave. This is a very important metaphor for society on ecology of resilience. If society are linked together, the strong cohesion then is likely to crumble under calamity. I love to go to the National Art Gallery, and I'm so glad that Chairman Mr. Siafu Hua is here. And in the art gallery, there's a room for children to paint. It's called the Keppel Art Room. And I'll bring my grandchildren there to do some painting, and they do a painting of trees, and you see the trees are all linked together. All right. The roots are all linked together. But what actually holds a society, holds a community together? I think there are three important elements, and these are faith, hope, and love. Faith meaning trust in your family, your neighbors, your friends, and also trust in the frontline workers, and trust in the authorities. And this will stir up a sense of hope and love or compassion. The book will be launched in a few minutes' time. And in the book, there's a line that says, "We never actually own the rainforest. We merely look after it for the next generation." I want to thank the NParks for helping us with this research, this study. Mr. William Hunstead is a retired American senator living here in Singapore. And for the last 30 years, his children are all grown up, all in the medical profession. And he wants to thank Singapore and they gave us a donation for this study. And also I will thank the NParks who are volunteers, and also the Mind Science Center. I presented this idea in a World Conference 2 years ago in Mexico City. The chairman of the conference was a professor from Brazil. He told me this is a marvelous idea because he said that one of the causes of global warming is the destruction of the rainforest. And if people begin to love the rainforest and they will not want to burn it down, then it's wonderful for the world. He told us that in Brazil, the Amazon rainforest is 10,000 times the size of Singapore. People are destroying it. If we can do something for the forest, that would be wonderful. NAMAS is a small step in the ecology of resilience in Singapore, and if it is adopted by more countries around the world, it can be a giant step for humanity. Thank you.
Professor Kwa for that speech. I would now like to invite Mrs. Teo Po Yin for the book launch of Nature, Health and Happiness.
Good morning, and a special welcome to our Minister Desmond Lee, and all our friends, colleagues, and everyone in Singapore. Welcome. What we're going to do today is to have this book launch, which Professor Kwa Yi Hyok has already given a very interesting and fascinating synopsis. So,
all right, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then you're going to press this.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
see trees of green,
red roses too.
I see them blue
For me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue
And clouds of white.
the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky,
Also on the faces of people going by.
I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They'll only say,
I love you. Smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through. If you just
Those are our stars. Lovely singing. Due to urbanization, a lot of people have moved away into the cities. They have lost touch of nature. Many studies have shown that living near greenery helps to lead a longer, healthier, and happier life. So we are very fortunate in Singapore, and thanks to NParks, they have been doing a wonderful job in continuing to create a garden for all of us to enjoy in our backyard. More green corridors, parks, and the passion that they have shown in building the diversity of flora and fauna all around us. So we are indeed very, very fortunate. In the Nature and Mindfulness Awareness Study, the findings showed that mindful walking can make a difference, and it can enhance well-being and mental resilience. So we are, again, with these positive findings, what are we going to do about it? We're going to bring it to the community, and we're going to make it happen. Bring the benefits of mental resilience to the people. And that will happen in the 7 NUS Mind Science Center Age Well program in Singapore, across the whole of the island. Finally, what is most important is let us continue to protect our rainforest, because that's important for us to take care of them for the next generation. It is now with great pleasure that we invite our very passionate and nature-loving minister to receive the book.
Live viewers, if you'd like to support the work of My Science Center, you can make a donation by scanning the QR code shown on the screen. All donations are tax deductible, and donors who give $500 or more will receive a special autographed copy of the book. Copies are limited. So the next item in our program is actually a panel discussion facilitated by Professor John Wong Chi Ming. Professor Wong has many accomplishments. He is the NUS Lin Jo Yen and Yo Boon Kim Professor in Mental Health and Neuroscience. He's also the Center Director of My Science Center, President of the College of Psychiatry's Senior Consultant at the NUHS, and many more, as you can see on the slide. So our panel experts are Mrs. Wee Gyok Hwa, as well as Professor Vincent Chong. So we'll begin the panel discussion in a few minutes. Okay, let's welcome Professor Wong on stage to facilitate the panel discussion.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the webinar. Very good morning. Welcome back to the webinar. For the next segment, we have two presentation and sharing from a very personal, reflective, as well as learning experience of our two key NAMAS participants who helped to design and run the program with Professor Kwa and his team. So the first, we'd like to invite Professor Vincent Chong. Professor Vincent Chong is by professional training, he's our radiologist professor in NUS and NUH, but he has a very great interest in nature, in photography, as well, and in promoting mental health. and we always tout him as our honorary volunteer. So today he's going to share on his own reflection and his understanding and insight into therapeutic garden, how it helped an individual. Professor Vincent.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about the therapeutic forest. Therapeutic forest is all about nature, and nature is good for us. Now, nature is important for our well-being. Why is it so? It's because human health is part of nature, and we cannot separate these two links. For a long time, we know that people who live near greenery, rural areas, they have healthy lives. What they have, in fact, are longer lives, happier lives. So why is that so? There are reasons. People who live near greenery, even in a city like Singapore, enjoy the nearest of nature because the nature that we are with purifies the air for us. The air is always fresher. So there's less pollution when there are a lot of trees. Even living in a city, if there's sufficient trees, the air becomes cleaner. Yeah. Trees filter and remove pollution. Trees do it in the day, trees do it in the night. No complaints, 24 hours they clean the air for you. So living near trees and nature is salubrious to our health. It always reminds me of my mother who used persil or breeze. They say, we clean our clothes cleaner than clean, whiter than white. Trees do the same thing. You look at all the dirt in the air, when it goes through the trees, it becomes white. Right in the city, right where human population is. Now let's shift gear to another setting. Few of us have the calmness of countryside where it's quiet. City noise drives us bananas, drives us nuts. Yeah? If you have a house near a highway, it's going to be priced very low. Sound, noise is a pollutant that stresses us. In fact, you have an International Noise Awareness Day. Stress to tell us how deleterious the effect of sound is. But trees and nature can help us. What has been found is that in the presence of trees, greenery, sound is mitigated. The noise pollution seems a bit less. Now I can give an example. This is where I used to live in Shelford Road before it was torn down for redevelopment. It's all green. Look at it, it looks beautiful. But in front of this building is Farrer Road. Very noisy. But I don't seem to hear the noise so much because of the greenery. Greenery mitigates. So how does it work? It works like that. Many of us have aches and pain, The aches and pain will still be there. You use tiger balm, you rub. The skin feels cool. It feels better. But the pain is still there. So even if you have sound, noise pollution, if you have enough of trees and greenery, our distress will be less. Even more so, for instance, if you look at the positive aspect of life, the positive aspect of people, all the blemishes of people, all the bad things begin to disappear in the background. So it's the same effect. With greenery, it takes away the sound from us. One more thing. Urban heat island. In the city center, for instance, in the CBD, where it's 28.5, Lim Chu Kang is very much less. With trees, with greenery, it brings down the heat. When it brings down the heat, we have less heat-induced distress. And this is recognized. In fact, the difference can be 7% or 7 degrees centigrade. Now, what do? We plant trees. It's nature. Nature makes the environment much better for us. And when that is so, there's less stress on us and we live happier lives. Now let us move just a bit deeper in respect of health in a nature setting. We know that health has 3 components: the mind, the body, and the social aspect. Let's start with the mind. Now, Dr. Ulrich, he published a paper comparing patients recovering from surgery and how they do. One group has a window that looks out into nature. Another group of patients, when they're recovering, they look out into a brick wall. Who do you think is happier? Who do you think will be doing better? Now, the person or the patient who has a view out into greenery feels happier, feels less distressed, and because of that, they heal better. And this comes to the biophilia theory, which says that because we evolved through nature, our body is very much synced with nature. For over 6 million years, we live in nature. But the last 250 years, because of urbanization, we put into an artificialized surrounding. So when we return to nature, this is a concept of therapeutic forest. When we return to nature, it heals us, it restores us. That's why we like to see greenery, we like to see forests, we like to see rivers. We feel in harmony with nature. Not only forests, but any green spaces will do. Now the second part is about our body. Physical body and exercises. In greenery, we feel nice, we feel happy to go out to exercise. We can walk alone, we can run alone. This is called good solitude. We like to be alone sometimes. Run alone, walk alone, cycle alone. This helps us to keep our body fit. But better still, you can be able to do it with some friends. Just look at this lady here. I was watching her taking her mat, her exercise mat in the botanical gardens. Now, where do you think she's going? She's going to exercise with her friends. And this comes to the social part of health. We are part of nature. We are also part of groupings in society. We find comfort in people. We find happiness in people. It's satisfying relationships that make us happy. And that's important for emotional health. And these are the people in a NAMA study, after they walk, they talk. We have a grouping, we enjoy our company, social connectivity, and all the good things of living a happy and satisfying life with people around us. And we do things together, like what Professor Kwa Yi Hyok has shown. We participated in tree planting. You see, they look happy. You look at all the happy faces. Happy faces. Happy faces. Look at the eyes. And look at these eyes. These are distressed eyes because they cannot people who are locked up have no means of being with people. They have no exercises and they feel miserable. And that's the reason why we need to have nature where we can go out to exercise, to be with friends, to enjoy the company, to enjoy the fresh air. And I think the National Park has done a wonderful job in providing the setting for us to live happily and live not only happily, healthily as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vincent. So we have the next presenter, Mrs. Wee Gyok Hua. Mrs. Wee will be able to share with us her own personal learning and reflecting experience of teaching and practicing mindful walking in the nature in the forest. So Mrs. Wee, please.
Just click it. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and all of you Zoomers out there joining us from wherever you are in the comfort of your own home. I've been given 8 minutes to share with you my experience in the aspect of mindfulness and mindful walking. So, what is mindful walking, and how does one walk mindfully? And often I'm asked this question. In order for us to understand mindful walking, one actually has to also understand the broader mindfulness practice itself. Yeah. So instead of trying to explain to you, I've decided that I will invite all of you and all of you Zoomers out there to join me for a walk. So this morning is a beautiful morning, and I have selected the forest trail in the Singapore Botanic Gardens. For some of you who are familiar, who have been walking with us, you know exactly what the trail looks like, all right? So for those of you who have never been here, imagine. So wherever you are, sit back, and including my live audience, please join me. Sit back, be comfortable, close your eyes, put your 2 feet on the ground, and allow me to just take you through a short, mindful 3 to 4 minutes walk. We have arrived at the walking trail with a knapsack on our back, amongst other belongings, a bottle of water. As we begin our walk, we first notice the steps of the boardwalk, gently ascending. The trees and the lush green leaves provide a protective canopy over our heads. The scent of the forest, the fresh, clean air, the early morning dew following a night of shower, and now the rays of sunshine dancing amongst the leaves and branches give us a sense of ease and comfort. We notice the sounds of our feet, our shoes, in contact with the boardwalk. Thud, thud, thud. We sense our breathing is heavier, having to exert greater effort to climb the steps. Slowing down the pace to catch our breath, we continue. A slight breeze rustles through the branches. We feel the coolness on our skin. Thoughts of the past, memories, a list of things to attend to later in the day occupies our mind. Preoccupied with our plan for the rest of the day, we have lost our present moment awareness. Suddenly, a monitor lizard waddles across our path. It caught our attention. Now, we are back in the present moment. As we push further into the trail, we stop to take a sip of water to quench our thirst. Feeling refreshed and energized, we continue with our walk. And as we reach the end of this 600 meters long forest trail, we notice the bright sunshine in the distance. We have finished our walk, and you may now open your eyes, and thank you for being with me and allowing me to guide you. You will notice that throughout this 3 to 4 minutes walk, what I've done is try to take you through the process where all our senses are awakened and actively engaged. Okay? We are intentionally mindful of the ground beneath our feet, the air passing in and out of our lungs. There are sights, smell, taste, touch, and sounds. So all our senses are actually awakened. There are many benefits in this practice, but sharing my own experience in particular of relevance to me is this deeper sense of concentration. Walking in a shared space with fellow walkers, insects and other animals, the weather itself, makes it a very challenging environment filled with potential distractions. And having to constantly and repetitively brings the mind back to the present moment, strengthens one's own ability to remain focused on the task and the task we set out to do. And in this case, of course, then it is to walk mindfully and to pay attention to whatever in the external that is arising in contact with your senses, and also to be aware of your own internal emotions and feelings that are rising. So I find myself connecting also much more closely with the environment, paying greater attention to the situation around me, to the environment around me, rather than walking mindlessly from place to place. Prof. Kwa earlier on, several months back when we were doing the book, asked me how I would describe, my own relation to the forest. And I told him, I said, the forest is Mother Nature. And I said, Mother Nature to me is a place of refuge where a tired body and mind can be healed and restored. And earlier on, Professor Vincent Chong has given you all the reasons why therapeutic gardening is so important and so beneficial. Now, experiencing nature in the present moment as I walk along, I find myself release of stress, anxiety, whatever is there, and also this general feeling, this burden sometimes of the vicissitudes of life. And always after a walk, I feel lighter, I'm much more relieved, my mood is happier, yeah. And I've been doing this for many years now, even before I joined NAMAS. And because I started my meditation practice almost 20 years ago, mindful walking has now been very much an integral part of my daily living. Now, can I have the next slide, please? So if you look at this, this is a definition which I took from John Kabat-Zinn, the founder of MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction technique, hugely popular. He defines mindfulness as the awareness that arises from paying attention. Paying attention, it is not random, right? On purpose and in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Next slide. Mindful walking is one aspect of the larger mindfulness practice which brings awareness to the body and bodily functions, feelings and emotions, thought processes and states of mind. This later core awareness practices focus on understanding our mind, and with a greater depth of awareness allows for regulating our emotions, exercising control over our responses instead of reacting to challenging situations, which we normally do. So, sharing with you all of this, I hope that for you, all of you out there, if I'm able to persuade just a few of you to take up this practice, then it would have been really worth my stress standing for 8 minutes here. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Okay, so thank you very much for Mr. Swee's sharing of mindful walking. Meantime, while our colleagues are setting up the seats for the panel of discussion, I just want to reflect on what Mr. Swee have just spoken and brought us through the 4 to 5 minutes of mindful walking virtually. I think nothing beats really mindful walking in reality, in nature, and I strongly encourage those who are interested to really follow up with Professor Kua and the Namas group to see how they could participate in some of their programs. But I was reminded that as we look at mindful walking, it's not just being aware of the present, but it's also important to be aware of our own breathing, our own biological rhythm. And I think it's the pairing of the biological rhythm and the focused attention of the present that actually makes a great difference, especially when we walk in nature. So without further ado, allow me to invite our panel of discussants, Mrs. Swee, Professor Vincent, and Professor Kua to the front. And we will look at what are the questions that our webinar participants have posted. Some of them have been answered online. Some of them we will post it to our colleague here. Yeah. I think there's one question very quickly. Professor Vincent, I think was presented to you, is that they would like you to address how would the forest prevent dementia?
Well, we have to take dementia in a setting of total health. So the forest affords us the opportunity to go out to walk, and walking is important in controlling risk factors like hypertension as well as diabetes. When we go out to walk and we mix with people, we feel happier, and depression is relieved. Anxiety is also relieved when we mix with people. These are very important aspects that we have to deal with. The mental aspect, that the challenges that dementia poses to us, but at the same time, we take care of the risk factors. There's hypertension, poor circulation to the brain, which can be aided by walks and exercises.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I think there's another question that was posted. I think it was presented to Mrs. Wee. I think many of them are very interested to really investigate further into mindful walking. How can they learn?
Like I said earlier, mindful walking is one of the aspects of the whole of the mindfulness practice, which actually focus first on the body, and then, as you saw on the slide just now, then on the internal working of your own mind, on your feelings, your emotions, and your thought processes, and then the different states of mind. Yeah, and there are many centers. You can Google them, which actually teaches how to do mindfulness. Rather than mindful walking, They teach you the whole of the mindfulness practice, and mindful walking is one aspect of it. So, yes,
Thank you.
they are out there. The classes are out there.
Good. And there are two questions posted online which are related to mindful walking. So I would read them out and then maybe either Mrs. Wee or Prof. Phua could address that. So there was a question posted online. Is there a mindful group that walks through the forest coming out soon so that we can join? And second question is that, would there be benefits for wheelchair-bound people to be wheelchair under the trees?
Prof, you can answer that.
So earlier, Mrs. Teo Po Yim mentioned about the relevance of a study that will be extended or translated into community. So I understand that many of the elderly groups in Queenstown, Eunos, Bishan, they are keen to learn more about the therapeutic forests. So we are organizing a training program in NUS to help them understand. It will be a 4-week program, a training program. But also the Age Well Everyday program is very organic. We move with time and add new activities. It's not static. The program has 3 phases. Firstly, it is evidence-based, it is structured, and there is measurable outcome. That's so wonderful about the Age Well Everyday program. And so we're going to introduce therapeutic forests soon, and already a lot of takers.
Thanks, Prof. Phua. There's one question which is again related. Do you recommend walking alone or as a group? This question was posed by Eng Tat, and he mentioned that he prefer doing it alone.
So there are 2 theories of walking mindfully through the therapy forest. There are some people who enjoy solitude. They walk to the forest, they sit down, and they write poetry or write a song. So that's wonderful. Others like to walk together. The Nama study, we want to build up social capital. We want people to know each other. And so the upshot of it, as I mentioned in the pandemic, they begin to care for one another. So there's all this social connectivity, which is very important. The Nama study is important because of, we discuss about aging in place. Many people are living alone. If people know the community well, the neighbors well, they can come in to help them out. So whilst we want to have a bit of solitude, it's also good to have a group of friends to come to help us.
Good. Thanks. And there's one question that's directed at healthcare professional. How can healthcare professionals help to promote social and mental capital among older adults? We have 2 healthcare professionals here. I have the privilege of moderating.
So I think the point mentioned by Professor Vincent Chong is very important. Mental capital has to do with our cognitive reserve, our brain reserve. And so if you don't take care of our own health, our brain reserve falls and we have early memory problem. If you take care of our own health, you can still keep this reserve for a long period of time. That's why 80% of the Namas group are still working part-time or full-time. And this mental capital is important. And even those who are not working, they play a big role as volunteers. So they play a big role for the society. That's what we mean by mental capital. Mental capital doesn't end when you retire at 65. There are lots of things that people can still do, and they play a role in voluntarism.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. I would just also like to add on is that I think as we all aged, it's not so much of what professional background we bring along or bring with us, but it's really our unique life experiences that we share with the rest. And so it's not something that only mental health or medical practitioner or healthcare practitioner can contribute. Actually, every individual can contribute their unique life experiences in such a group or in such a reflective experience sharing. Yeah. Okay. Any other further question as I scroll down? The questions keep on coming in, there's a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's one there. Can you achieve mindful walking with a group of walkers taking into account of distraction? That means they talk among themselves. I think that's a very apt question about building social capital. How can we
I will address
Mrs.
that. I will address that because this is exactly where the difference is. Because when you walk in a group, then it actually gives you that opportunity. Because it's solitude, you're by yourself, and it gives you the opportunity to just become aware of the external as well as your own internal emotions that may be arising. But the minute you walk in a group, then talking to one another is almost impossible. I mean, it's almost a given to be quiet and walk by yourself. Your friends may wonder whether there's something wrong with you or you're upset with anybody in particular, and why are you walking, ahead all by yourself. So I think if one is really serious about taking up mindful walking, then you can always combine it. Sometimes with friends, right, for this social capital, and then other times on your own, so that you can really deepen your own mindful practice and also deepen your concentration. And in that sense, then you will have your experience will be a lot more in-depth and insightful as well.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. V. I think that brings to two very important points about resilience. You find that in many attributes that build resilience comes to a point where it differentiates someone who is cognitively flexible as well as being a flexible person. The options that they have actually enhance the resilience. So I think it's important to be reminded that we can walk alone at our own time, to be more reflective, to be more in touch with nature in solitude, as what Mrs. Wee said. But there's also time. There's a time for social capital building, social cohesion building, and socialization. So I think there's a season for everything. Yeah? Okay, one more. One last question. I was prompted. I think otherwise we'll run out of airtime. Do the participants, okay, don't make it too small, I cannot read. Can you make it bigger? This is aging. Do the participants in the NAMAS study group know each other, or do some of them know others? How did the researchers control for social dynamics, that's a good point, with the findings for social health in the study? This can also include personality type. Oh, okay. Prof. Kwa and Prof. Vincent.
It's a very searching question, and I'm very glad to take it on, because this is a qualitative study. And so the idea was stirred up by the chairman of NParks, Mr. Benny Lim, and also our friend Mr. Abdullah Tamudi, our former Speaker of Parliament. And we proposed to get a group of friends. If we go and get a random sample, we will probably be talking about methodology for the next 1 year. So the friends are mainly the friends of late Mr. Wee Sin To, and a few others came in together. So in many ways, they may know or may not know each other. So the personality types all been selected by Mr. Wee Sin To. They had to put up with it. And as you realize, as correctly when Mrs. Wee mentioned that along the way, there's some people who are a bit more garrulous. You'll talk and talk and talk. And she'll remind me to next week's walk, can you remind that gentleman not to talk too much? And sometimes I will ask the gentleman, you're supposed to be a bit more quiet. He's like, well, I've not met Mr. Abdullah Tamuji such a long time. Why can't I just ask him a question, So these are long-term friends, but there's a time for this, as Professor John Wong mentioned, the time for everything. So I told them that you can walk mindfully, but at the end of 2 hours, we are going to the coffee place, and there you can have a more discussion. So there will be some personality types, but this is only a qualitative study, and we hope to build up to a bigger study. We're hoping now to get involved even our students, because resilience is not just for seniors, even for youth and adults from the university and the other parts of the island.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have come to the close of the Q&A. Please join me to thank the panelists and the speakers, Professor Kwa, Professor Vincent, and Mrs. Wee. Yeah. So it gave me privilege and pleasure to thank everybody for attending this event, both our live participants as well as our live webinar participants. In the memory of our late Mr. Wee Sin To, we have set up a memorial fund to honor him. as the founding board chairman of the Mind Science Center, to remember him as a beacon of driving motivation for the Mind Science Center. And we hope to raise funds for the Wisinto Memorial Fund with a book launch. And donations with a gift of $500 and above will receive an autographed copy of the book. And the gift will be used to fund projects in training, research, and outreach programs at Mind Science Center and the Mind Art Experiential Lab, which I mentioned earlier on, across 3 major domains. One is building early childhood resilience. Second is helping seniors age well, like the AWE program. And the third is to give more energy and resource and driving motivation to the Mind Art Experiential Lab and the Mind Gym. So with this, I'd like to thank everybody for your support, and especially mention the many donors who have pledged as well as donated, and also Mr. Xiafu Hua for his personal support and attention in this fundraising program. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Angelia.
Hi, we have come to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for your participation. You'll be receiving a post-event survey via Zoom. Please participate and let us know what you'd like to see in our future events. And also, please join us for an upcoming webinar, the Tao Tien Seng Lecture on Ecology of Longevity on 7 November. We hope to see you and have a nice weekend. Bye.